The laws of this YouTube channel are mine and they will obey me. So, we're not getting new Doctor Who stuff for a little while yet, and this time of year I get into a Doctor Who mode, because usually we got new episodes around this time, but I am going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to talk about an older episode. Specifically, I'm going to talk about The Waters of Mars. I'm doing this for two reasons. One, we're in October, Halloween. This is one of the scarier ones. I think it's fitting. But also, one of the most common questions I get, anyone who looks at either my top 10 stories of the 10th Doctor list or my top 10 one-time villains list, I always get one question: where's Water of Mars? Where's the flood? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm really tired of responding to those comments. So I just want to make a video explaining my thoughts on this episode, why it didn't make either of those top two lists. So next time I can just comment back with a link to this video and leave it at that. So Waters of Mars, is it good? Yes! And that's one of the things that drives me nuts about the internet. You do a top 10 list, people tend to assume anything that's not on your top 10. Why did you hate this? I don't hate it. It just isn't top 10 material for me. And that's sort of where this falls. There's a lot to like about this episode, and I'll start with the stuff that really works. David Tennant as the Doctor, doing very well. I mean, he was on his way out. He was on the tail end. This is part of the specials. And he knows he doesn't have a lot of time left, and he's putting his all into it, as he usually did. I don't think he ever phoned it in. I don't want to imply that. But you really got the feel during the specials, like, I want to go out on a high note. And this one is really building well towards the end of time, parts 1 and 2, in terms of where he is as a character and what's going on inside of him and the conflicts he's got going. This episode also has a really strong supporting cast, and most of my favorite Doctor Who stories have excellent supporting cast. Something like this, or The Satan Pit is another one with a fantastic supporting cast. You know, all these characters who we haven't seen before and we won't see again, but have built-in dynamics that are believable, and they react to the Doctor in different ways, and it makes the whole thing just feel much more organic. It feels like a living world that the Doctor has entered into, instead of what can happen with more stiff and less interesting supporting cast, where it just feels like these people are just here to service the Doctor's story. I think the environment and the set's really well realized. I think Mars looks great. I definitely want to single out the leader of the team, Adelaide Brooke. She's wonderful. I've mentioned her on a top 10 list before. She is great. She's got wonderful gravitas, and yet she feels very human. She's got this great balance of being a leader, being strong, and yet still feeling vulnerable and not being some implacable badass. Like, she is a human with concerns and fears and hopes, but at the same time, she knows how to get down and get the job done. Okay, so that's all this stuff that's good. So with all this stuff, why do I keep leaving this episode off of top 10s? Well, two reasons. The first is I personally don't find it especially scary. It's effective in what it's trying to do. It's not like I'm laughing at it like I was with something like Sleep No More. It's not that, but it's just I watch it and I'm going, oh, interesting, but I'm not scared by it. And I mean, that's a personal thing, but when an episode is trying to be scary and I'm not scared, that's gonna bring it down a little bit. And then the other thing is the whole concept of the flood, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't dislike it, but I'm not going to elevate it up to a top 10 status because, as far as I'm concerned, it's a riff on zombies. And I've seen zombies to death. It's basically just got the water in place of infected blood. And again, not a thing wrong with that, but just sort of feeling that they are just such a zombie surrogate makes me not think of them as highly. And the other thing, I know I've seen some people say, you know, just one drop of water and you're doomed. I mean, that's terrifying. To me, that's actually not. Something being that absolute, in a way, for me, makes it less scary. I find uncertainty to be very scary. So if I were to compare, say, the Vashta Nerada, if with the Vashta Nerada, every single shadow can eat you, that doesn't, I mean, I get intellectually why that's a scary situation to be in, but that as a concept doesn't scare me. You've just made this huge blanket statement, it's this absolute, but the idea of, no, not every shadow is Vashta Nerada, but any shadow could be. That is much scarier to me. The uncertainty of it, that having no idea whether you're safe or not. The idea all the water's infected, you touch the water, you're done, kind of takes some of the tension out of it for me, because the instant somebody gets splashed, I'm like, okay, well, that's it. And so again, it's very much a personal thing. I'm not saying anybody's wrong if they put this episode on our top 10, if they put The Flood as a top 10 monster. It's all fine. I don't think either is bad. It's just these are some of the reasons that why I keep leaving this stuff off my top 10 list, except for Adelaide Brooke. She made a top 10 list. People seem to forget that. And I will stand by that. But you know what? Even though this didn't personally frighten me, this is one of the better executed scary stories that modern Doctor Who has done. So if you want to pop in some Doctor Who during October, get revved up for Halloween, this works, Blink works, Midnight works, I think Hyde works, although I get the impression I like that episode more than a lot of people. But again, that wasn't a top 10 episode for me either. But in any case, those are my overall thoughts on Waters of Mars. Pop it in for Halloween. It's worth that, if nothing else. So, what were your thoughts on Waters of Mars? I think I'm gonna get a lot of people telling me how dumb I am and that my rationale is stupid. But in any case, whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Council of Geeks. Follow the Council of Geeks podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. And until next time, this council is adjourned.